Hello everyone, and welcome to the third entry in our Warhammer Fantasy Battles Who Would Win series. Today I'm joined by the Loremaster of Sotek. We're going to be taking a look at 5 matchups between some of the old world's greatest champions, and essentially determining who would be the winner, in accordance with lore and some other variables that he will of course be going over. So without further ado, let's jump right into the first matchup.
Round 1.
And here we have a showdown between
Skarsnik, warlord of 8 peaks,
and Queek.
warlord Queek Headtaker.
So my prediction for this matchup is going to be Skarsnik, but Sotek, what do you got for us?
All right, so taking us into one of the few matchups we have in here where this battle has actually happened a few times in the lore, though there weren't any definitive winners. This time, of course, we'll be pitting them in a situation where only one can walk away,
Like a UFC
unlike
cage.
both of them.
Yeah.
Exactly, except for with a giant squig in the center of it. In any event, this one's a pretty interesting matchup. So Queek Headtaker, traditionally, he's one of the most skilled fighters that Skavendom has to offer. There's probably, I can only count on one hand, probably the number of Skaven who are a better combatant than he is. And the most important thing is that he specializes in duels. The only other Skaven of note who specializes in duels is, of course, Deathmaster Snitch. As for Queek, he does bring a lot of cool things to the table. Dwarf Gouger is a very good weapon. It will be very useful for trying to kill Skarsnik or his delightful pet Gobla. And of course, the Warp Shard armor will actually be pretty important in this matchup. Plus, he is the originator of the legendary trophy heads, which for most people that don't know what that ability actually refers to, Queek has a rack on his back where he keeps some heads and a pair of hands and a bunch of other stuff from people he's killed over the years. And the thing is, those various bits and pieces talk to him, and he hears them as voices in his head, and they tell him things that are actually true and accurate. So they analyze his opponent. And what more likely is happening is that Queek is his subconscious is doing the work, but for some reason it comes out as the voices of people he's killed.
Okay. I was going to ask, is he mental, or is it just like a placebo type thing, or is it there actually some magical quality to these items?
For the most part, I think he's insane.
Okay.
But there are hints that there's something supernatural about it, because at times he knows things that he shouldn't. There are things about the style of battle or weaknesses of his enemy that he should not know, but he does because of what the heads whisper to him. So in this case, he would be relying on a orc he has on the back of it to help him out dealing with Skarsnik. As for Skarsnik, we have a fairly dangerous combatant. He's very sneaky, very conniving. Skarsnik traditionally tends to rely on a strategy of not fighting unless he absolutely has to, or he's basically already winning and he just needs Gobla to send someone into rout. That being said, Gobla does specialize in anti-assassin tactics because he has a legendary sense of smell that has allowed him to eat people without having any idea what it is he's trying to eat. Because Gobla is actually, funny enough, most people don't know this, Gobla is basically blind. He only has a single eye and he's very nearsighted.
Well, he's like subterranean, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
In any event, though, this fight, I have a winner, but it does come with a note, an asterisk, if you will. So the asterisk is that, I'll say the winner first. I think due to the difference of level and skill and to a magic item that I'm going to focus on in a moment, I think Queek Headtaker would take this round.
Wow, really? Even with Gobla and the giant squig and
even with Gobla the giant squig. And the reason is, for the biggest thing is that Queek is very fast. Queek is one of the fastest Skaven. He's not as fast as Deathmaster Snitch, but he's fast enough that dwarves basically call him blindingly fast, and his fighting style is very bizarre and hard to predict because it was designed to get around dwarven shield walls. And the thing is, Dwarf Gouger is the perfect weapon to kill Gobla with, because thanks to a series of stories, we know that Gobla only really has one notable weakness, which is basically weapons that have a long pointy end. Gobla doesn't like that. That's actually how he lost. That's actually how he was wounded a few times. And the thing about Gobla is that ultimately the only way Skarsnik would traditionally win this fight in a melee scenario is that Gobla would need to eat Queek. But the problem is, if Gobla does eat Queek, Queek has Dwarf Gouger, a bonus sword that because he fights a two-handed style, and he has got that Warp Shard armor, which the whole thing about the warp shard armor is that it's literally a set of Skaven steel that's been infused with warpstone shards and powder to make it poisonous.
Oh boy.
And it's covered in spikes, because the whole point of the warp shard armor is that if anybody gets too close to Queek or tries to strike him, the armor, when you hit it, it literally it vibrates and shakes off these shards that will literally cause you to start dying almost immediately on the spot because you inhale it. Goblo would die very quickly if he tried to eat Queek. Now, granted, he might kill him, but I don't think he would be able to kill him. I think Queek is tough enough and his armor would protect him enough that Goblo would either choke on the warp dust or one of the spikes would impale him. And unfortunately, if a squig gets impaled by a sharp object, they literally deflate like balloons.
Is that for real? Really?
Yes, that's 100% the most traditional way to kill a squig is to deflate them by hitting them with something pointy, and they just pop and they just whine with the air that a balloon makes when it's just letting out little bits of air, and they just deflate into a big sack.
Oh,
that's what would happen to Goblo.
Yeah.
And if that happened, Skarsnik would die immediately.
So he would have no chance physically against.
No chance.
Okay.
Now, the asterisk is Skarsnik's Prada does have the ability to shoot bolts of lightning.
Okay.
If that bolt hit Queek, Queek's dead. Not even, he is super dead.
Is it kind of like a machine gun, like lightning, or is it like a single bolt?
It's like a warp lightning cannon. It just shoots out this big old bolt that will incinerate you if it hits you or blow you apart. Now, the reason I have it as an asterisk and not as the reason Skarsnik would win is because in the lore, the way the Prada works is Skarsnik has to have other greenskins around him. And when lots of greenskins are gathered together, the wah energy of them all being together and excited and fighting, that's what powers the Prada and determines how powerful it is when he fires it. Since these are one-on-one duels where nobody gets their bodyguards or backups, which we've discussed in the past, Skarsnik's Prada probably wouldn't be able to kill Queek in a single blow if he was even able to fire it at all. So ultimately, goes to Queek.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, I mean, granted, let's say they were in a melee between the two armies. Skarsnik would obviously, with the collective power of the wall, would perhaps have more of a chance with his Prada, correct?
Oh, yeah. Plus, Skarsnik would not let Queek get anywhere near him.
Yeah, yeah.
They've never fought, and for good reason. Belagar has fought Skarsnik before, but Queek never got the chance. Skarsnik always gets the hell out of Dodge.
And I would expect that, too, in a grand combat scenario. Skarsnik is a far superior tactician as well.
Oh, yeah. He's the ambush king. Yeah, he's the best general of the three of them by far.
Fair play. All right, well, there we have it. The first match of the day is going to be going to Queek Headtaker.
Superb. Fatality.
Bit of an upset there. I really thought Big Boy Goblo would get in there and feast, but alas, that warp shard armor is quite nasty. So here we are.
Spiky armor will do it. Armor will do it.
It'll deflate the balloon, unfortunately. That's so ridiculous. That really goes back to the old school Games Workshop comedy, right? Of the squig deflating like a balloon. Oh man, that's pretty great.
You've looked at Doom Divers, right?
Yeah, I have seen them. Maybe they'll be on these lists someday. All right, so here we are.
Round 2.
The second matchup of the day is going to have one of your own champions. We have Lord Mazda Mundi.
Mazda Mundi.
The mobility scooter king himself, facing off against Galrat, who is the father of Chaos Dragons, if I have it correct.
Right. So just a quick refresher for anyone that's not super familiar with Warhammer. Galrat is a Warriors of Chaos special character. He's a Chaos Dragon. But what makes him unique is he was the first, because he was this great golden drake who was kind of the hope of the elves. He was one of the elder drakes, so he was huge. And he's this big, scary monster. But what happened is his rider, who was a deep friend of his, because high elves tend to make bonds with their dragons. They're not beasts. They're very close friends.
Okay.
His rider was killed by a greater demon of Tzeentch named Fate Claw. And Galrat got super pissed and dove down and just bit Fate Claw in half and killed him. But it was a trick. Fate Claw wanted him to do that because the moment he devoured the top half of Fate Claw, he dissolved into this mist and entered into all the pores over Galrat's body.
Oh boy.
And essentially corrupted him and took over his body. So Galrat's head split in half down the middle all the way to the base of his neck. And that's why Chaos Dragons have two heads.
Oh.
One head is the original, and one head is a warp spawn creation that's probably Fate Claw, but it's at least a chaos creature of Tzeentch. But what makes Galrach very scary compared to other Chaos Dragons is while Chaos Dragons in and of themselves are very terrifying, Galrach is another level. Where most Chaos Dragons tend to breathe a poisonous mist out of their mutated head, Galrach's breathes a purified form of warp energy. He literally will, as a breath attack, he literally vomits out this dust that will immediately cause you to mutate horrifically until you just die.
Jeez.
So you'll just be growing extra arms and eyes and all sorts of other stuff until your body gives out under the exertion.
Yeah.
The other thing that's notable about Galrach is he's a wizard. Galrach is actually one of the most powerful casters of Tzeentch known. He's one of the strongest sorcerers in the world.
Oh, man. Okay. I didn't know that.
So that's what we have here. We have basically a greater demon of Tzeentch combined with a very powerful dragon into a single entity versus the strongest of the living Sluan, who normally would not stand a chance, quite frankly. Like, I don't think a second generation Sluan would be able to defeat Galrach one-on-one, but Mazda Mundi does have Zlak, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
Zlak is a very important part of the equation. So we have two monstrous characters, very powerful casters who are old as hell, and they're very strong in different ways.
Yeah.
The way this breaks down kind of comes down to a couple of key features. One, Mazda Mundi has some interesting potent magic items. The Cobra Mace will be completely useless. It's basically designed to shatter magical weapons that try to strike Mazda Mundi, so that won't help him. But Sunburst Standard, which is that little banner that comes out of the back of his little palanquin, stands on top of it. That thing is helpful. It does contain the light and the power of the sun, and when Mazda Mundi flicks his wrist, it basically blows up. It's basically like if someone took the sun at its brightest and was holding it in their hand, and when you tried to attack them, they just threw it in your face.
Yeah.
And just blind the crap out of you. So there is that. Galrach does not bring any magic items to the table. He's just terrifying.
He is magic. Yeah.
So let's get down to the real nit grit of it, which is first, could the Breath of Change alone kill Mazda Mundi? Answer, quite frankly, is no. The Shield of the Old Ones, which is that little bubble of magic that protects the Sluan, unlike what Total War Warhammer may lead you to believe, that's a permanent structure around most Sluan, or all Sluan. Their palanquins have that built in as a design. Those shields are just always there, always on at fully functioning mode, which is something that makes Sluan very difficult to destroy. So the Breath of Change honestly wouldn't be able to get through it. And on top of that, Zlak is so tough that the Breath of Change would probably hurt him and cause some adverse effects, but it wouldn't be able to kill Zlak, and it probably wouldn't hinder him that much, honestly. Okay. Because when you're hit with mutations, the way the Warhammer world works is the more tenacious you are naturally, so the stronger you are in body and willpower, the less likely you are to be affected by mutation and the less devastating it will be. Zlak is the most stubborn bastard on the face of the earth.
Yeah.
And he's tough. You know, that's a 600-year-old Stegodon. And Stegodons only get tougher as they get older. So, you know. In any event, at the end of the day, though, I would actually slate this fight in Mazda Mundi's favor. The reason for that is Galrach has a lot of physical power, and he's very strong, and he can fly, which is important. But Mazda Mundi is a much better wizard than he is. Galrach is strong, and he is one of the strongest lore Tzeentch casters that the Warriors of Chaos know, but most of that is because he's backed up by being a dragon, so he can make up for the things he's not as skilled at. But the biggest factor is that Galrach actually has a flaw. And the thing about Galrach, and what makes his story so good, and also a tragedy, is that the true spirit of the Golden Drake Galrach, so what he was like when he was normal, still exists within him and refuses to give in even these thousands of years later. So Galrach doesn't actually like to take to the battlefield because most of the time Fate Claw or his mutated head is in control, and it doesn't like to fight that often when it can avoid it, because when it fights, the other head will battle it for dominion. And if it takes over, it will start attacking itself, trying to commit suicide.
Oh my god. Yeah.
To escape from this hell, and also to deny Fate Claw this power. So their battle would last for a very long time, because Galrach, the only way Galrach could overpower Mazda Mundi would be he'd have to go in physically. But Zlak, Stegodons are very good at killing dragons if they get too close. Those 3 horns they have at the front, they can easily gore a dragon and rip out its intestines if it's not careful.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, Galroch would have to get close to win the fight because Mazda Mundi would overwhelm him with magic. Flying wouldn't do him any good because magic. And Mazda Mundi is a better mage, so he would be able to overwhelm him over the long run. And sooner or later, Galroch's noble spirit would come to Mazda Mundi's aid and start attacking the other head, Fate Claw's head. And that would immediately cost Fate Claw the game because he'd be too distracted to cast. And the moment he stopped being able to defend himself magically, Mazda Mundi would smite the hell out of him.
Yeah, that's a pretty huge flaw for sure. Like having this massive entity trapped within the dragon, just like trying to backstab him the entire time, right?
Well, I will say for much of the old world, that's the only reason Galroch has not completely wiped out probably humanity and the elves.
So are there a couple circumstances in lore and some of the novels where Galroch may appear, but then the secondary form or his original form kind of serves as the savior at moments?
Yes, actually, if you want to read a story that has Galroch as a major character, I would recommend reading the Sigvald novel because Sigvald actually fights Galroch.
Oh, seriously?
And it does a great job showing how scary he is, but true to form, his noble spirit actually is the only reason Sigvald survives the battle.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. Yeah. Okay. So here we go. Champion is Mazda Mundi.
Impressive. Defeated.
I actually, now without that flaw, just kind of as a bit of a what if scenario, do you think it would be still go to Mazda Mundi, or it would be even more of like a pitched fight?
It would be a ridiculously pitched fight.
Okay.
It would literally just come down to who goofed up.
Yeah.
I think Zlak, it would come down to if Galroch could kill Zlak.
Yeah.
If Galroch could manage to get past Mazda Mundi's magic and get to Zlak and actually kill him, which he would have to do in combat because his breath would bounce for the most part. If he could actually kill Zlak and get Mazda Mundi without his bodyguard, then I'm pretty sure Mazda Mundi would be doomed.
Yeah. Interesting.
But it would be an ugly fight. It would be ugly. And anybody standing like miles around would be so boned.
Yeah.
Like that is not a fight you would want to be standing anywhere close to.
Got it. Well, cool. So here we are. Our second match of the day is going to be going to Lord Mazda Mundi and Zlak. Definitely a fan favorite there. Quite happy about that outcome. And now we're going to be moving on to number 3.
Round 3.
Which is going to be another showdown that is quite pertinent to you Total War players out there. It's going to be Azag the Slaughterer
Azag the Slaughterer
versus Balthazar Gelt.
Balthazar Gelt!
So I'm going to go with Gelt, man. I feel like, I'm a Gelt man myself. I feel like you might be able to turn him to stone, or not stone, but what is he? Would he turn him to like metal, right? Like lead or gold or something? Okay. I'm going to go with Gelt. What do you got for us?
All right. So this one was a really interesting one when it was proposed, because this is not one of the ones that would come to my mind typically. You have two characters who Gelt is a, sorcerer supreme, to steal the name from Marvel, who flies around on a very, very swift steed. And all of his items either buff him as a wizard or basically make him difficult to kill through traditional means. Because Gelt is not the kind of guy who would ever land on the ground. Like, unless it was just like the most important thing in the universe that he land on the ground, he just wouldn't do it. Because he's like, no, it's stupid. I'm going to stay up here where it's safe. But Azhag, on the other hand, is this crazy, powerful orc who has the spirit of the most powerful human wizard to ever live in his head, forcefully just throwing out bolts of death magic, trying to kill anyone that gets too close.
Yeah. On
a really not nearly as agile steed and very clumsy and ugly Skullmuncha, she is very dangerous. So this one kind of comes down to one of the traditional duel types of speed versus strength, in that Azhag is a total powerhouse. And if Azhag got anywhere remotely close to Gelt, Gelt's doomed. Like Gelt, if he gets in close combat, Gelt would die instantly. He has no defense against close combat. And Azhag's rocking like twin magic weapons and all sorts of other nastiness. So what it would come down to is, could Gelt's Pegasus Quicksilver be fast enough to keep out of range of Skullmuncha long enough for Gelt to overwhelm the Crown of Sorcery and kill Azhag? So excluding, of course, the fairly reasonable chance that Azhag and the Crown of Sorcery start arguing, which would probably immediately result in Azhag's death. who would win? In my opinion, looking at the scenario, I honestly think that Gelt would come out on top. And the reason is the only way this battle would end is that either Skullmuncher would catch up to Quicksilver, in which case Quicksilver and Gelt would die instantly. But Quicksilver's way too fast. Pegasi are much faster than Wyverns. Wyverns are very strong, tenacious, and stubborn. Speed, they're faster than dragons, but that's more due to the fact that dragons are not particularly swift creatures. And wyverns tend to be very clumsy. Like, they're very ugly, clumsy creatures. They're a lot like orcs. That's why they tolerate. That's why they tolerate having orcs.
That's why they get along.
Yeah, they're very kindred spirits.
Got it.
So, Quicksilver on the other hand is very graceful, powerful, and swift. And as long as Gelt could keep that distance open, he has enough magical power that he could overwhelm the defenses, naturally protecting Azhag and the Crown of Sorcery. And what I think Gelt would do, being that he's actually very clever and genius, is he would either try and turn... he would do one of two things. Either he would use the metal components that Azhag has upgraded himself and Azhag with into something that would work against them. Like, he would literally turn them into molten metal, which would be really bad for the two of them.
Yeah.
Or what he more likely would do is try and either make them too heavy so that they would fall, or he would try and turn at least the wings or something of Skullmuncher to gold. Which, the moment Skullmuncher is taken out of the equation, Azhag's boned.
Yeah.
Like, especially since the two of them fighting, like, either Azhag would be able to hit Quicksilver with a spell and kill him with death magic, and Gelt would fall to his death, or vice versa. Gelt would hit Skullmuncher with metal magic, and Azhag would fall to his death. Gelt, when it comes to casting and countercasting, or dispelling as it's called in Warhammer, is much more skilled in both of those than Azhag is.
Got it.
Granted, it would probably be a fairly long engagement, and Azhag's armor, his Deadard armor, is very, very surprisingly potent and would resist a lot of Gelt's magic. But if Gelt went Hail Mary with the Staff of Volans and through Final Transmutation, not even that armor would save Azhag, and he would go down. They would both, him and Skullmuncher would probably turn into a golden statue and fall to their deaths. The Crown of Sorcery would survive just fine, but Azhag himself would almost certainly be doomed. And so, because of that, I'd give it to Gelt.
Oh man, that's music to my ears. So there you have it, guys. The third matchup of the day between Azhag and Gelt is going to be going to Balthazar Gelt and Quicksilver.
Well done. Fatality.
So quite happy with that one. But number 4.
Round 4.
Our next matchup is definitely going to be a clash of the Titans, although it hurts a little bit for me to see like two of these like heroic, good characters in the old world fight. It's going to be Karl Franz versus King Luan.
King Luan Leon Kerr.
So I'm going to go with Franz. I mean, he's got the iconic weapon, he's got the Warhammer, and it's going to be my guess. So what do you got for us?
All right, so this one, of all the matchups we're looking at today, this one actually took me the longest to think about, and had me going back and forth from multiple books trying to figure out whose side I would in. So on one hand, we have Luann Lange, who is a somewhere in the ballpark of 90 to 100-year-old man who's been made eternally youthful by the blessing of the lady. He has the ability, he has holy water or Jesus blood that is like, he bleeds light. He doesn't bleed blood, he bleeds light. Shining, beautiful golden rays of light that cause him to heal at insane rates. And on top of that, he is a incredibly skilled warrior. He got the Grail Vow and he earned it as a mortal man before becoming a Grail Knight. And he is one of the best Grail Knights there is. He's a very, very skilled combatant, has some terrifying magic items between his legendary sword, the Sword of Throne, which is forged from Bretonia's most powerful metal, which, if memory serves correctly, is called silverine. And it, kind of like Mazda Mundi standard, contains the rays of the sun and will literally explode in your face to blind the crap out of you so that he can stab you. Not the most chivalrous action, but
It'll
when
do.
fighting monsters.
Yeah.
And on top of that, he does have the Lion Shield, which is mostly designed to prevent cowardly weapons from just killing him, like shooting and magic and things that Bretonnians look down on.
Yeah.
On the other hand, we've got Old Man Franz. And Karl Franz is a very clever man. He's not nearly as good of a combatant. Lange is a much more skilled warrior than Franz is. But Franz has Galmaraz. And Galmaraz is literally the great equalizer. It is a weapon that no being in the Warhammer Fantasy universe can get hit by and not at least be deeply wounded.
Yeah.
And as for defense, Karl Franz relies, of course, he has very, very nice plate armor, and he relies almost exclusively on the Silver Seal, which is very similar to Lange's own shield in that it's mostly designed to repel shooting and magic, but does provide him some melee defense as well. At the end of the day, it comes down to, could Galmaraz kill Lange? That's almost purely what it boils down to. Deathclaw and Byakhee equal out fairly well. Byakhee is not as strong or as dangerous in like a pure blood fight as Deathclaw, but Byakhee is a crapload faster.
Got it.
And that's kind of the relationship between Griffins and Hippogriffs, is that Griffins are traditionally stronger, but Hippogriffs are traditionally faster. So, honestly, after looking at it and thinking for a while, the biggest thing is that the Blessing of the Lady is super important, because it's one of the few things that can actually stop Galmaraz, is that kind of ethereal aura that Grail Knights have, which the Blessing of the Lady is something that kind of turns aside all blows. Or at least tries to.
Yeah.
But the Silver Shield does the same thing for Franz. At the end of the day, I would give the winning strike, even though these two men would probably be very honorable with each other, and I doubt they would fight to the death, but this is a death battle, so they have to.
Yeah.
I would give the killing blow to Lange.
Wow, really?
And the only reason is because he regenerates.
Yeah.
Which is a big deal. So, yes, Galmaraz can hit him, and it can explode his chest apart and tear off one of his arms. But Lange literally has the ability for his flesh to just start immediately putting itself back together.
So including like being, like having a limb cut off or something like that?
It would take him a minute, but yeah.
Wow.
But Franz is just a man. Just a man. He's got Galmaraz, but he's just a guy. He can fight pretty well for a guy, but there's nothing special about Franz as far as a fighter is concerned.
Yeah.
Galmaraz is what makes it's not what makes him special, but Franz is much more legendary as a statesman and as a leader than he is as a champion. Luan's almost the exact opposite. Luan is like a mighty great champion who, because of his heroic deeds, has become the king of Bretonnia and is respected and loved by his people and the lady, but because of his ability as a combatant.
Yeah.
Granted, he's also a nice guy because he follows the lady's strictures to the letter, but that's kind of an aside. The thing about Luan is that the two big things that weigh in his favor are the three big things. He's a much better fighter than Franz is. He would easily school Franz in a battle. Like if you gave Franz the Reikland Runefang instead of Galmaraz, he would get torn apart.
Yeah, it's just the Warhammer that's like, almost the plot armor of the Warhammer.
Yeah,
almost saving him.
It's like the plot weapon.
It's the
like
plot weapon.
Allows you to kill someone that you have no right.
Yeah.
And the other thing about Lange is that beyond the regen and being a better fighter and being, he's faster than Franz and he's faster than Deathclaw, so he would be able to dictate the fight and be coming in, striking at the two of them. So he has better air maneuverability. He's also got 100 years of experience on the battlefields, while Franz is like maybe in his 30s or 40s. Probably his 40s.
That's a big difference for sure.
And Franz he's just a guy. And the final big thing, of course, is that Lange's sword would be terrifying for Franz. if Langer's flying at you at, I don't know how many miles per hour a hippogriff would fly, but probably very fast, and he's got, 50 to 80 years in the saddle worth of experience, and he comes at you and he unleashes the Sword of Corone, so suddenly you're blinded for that split moment even, that's a death blow.
Yeah.
For Franz.
Yeah.
Franz, if Franz gets stabbed in the heart or his throat gets sliced or an artery gets cut, Franz is dead.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Luan, you could cut Luan's artery, you could slit his throat. He's not dead. He'll get back up.
Yeah, sounds like you have to go pretty deep to take out King Luan for sure.
Yeah, you gotta decapitate him or rip out a very important organ. You need near instant death to deal with.
Yeah. Well, there it is. Karl Franz and King Luan. The winner is going to be King Luan.
Excellent. Pay your respects.
But you made a very good case for it. Initially I didn't know that Luan was that, I guess, of an amazing duelist, right? In his entire background, he's 100 years old. He has regeneration. I mean, there's so many variables going in his favor, but definitely, you got to give it up for Karl for giving it a good go, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Karl puts up an amazing fight for literally a normal human being fighting a Grail Knight, which are superhumans.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, there it is, guys. Round 4. King Luan is going to be our champion.
Round 5.
Wow, I guess number 5, our 5th matchup here, is pretty heavy duty as well. We have Grombrindle, the White Dwarf.
Grombrindle!
Facing off against one of the returning champions, Malekith, the Witch King.
Malekith!
And I'm sure there's going to be a horde of angry dwarves watching with their arms crossed as you give your decision here.
My gosh, yes.
So here you go. Here's number 5. I'm going to go with Grombrindle. I'm a huge dwarf fan, so who's it going to be?
There are a lot of books open with the quill pressed to the paper waiting for me to finish the sentence.
Yeah.
So this is one of the ultimate grudge matches from one perspective. Funny enough, Malekith doesn't know that Grombrindle is a thing or that he's alive. Malekith's heard rumors of the White Dwarf, but he doesn't think or believe that he's Snorri Whitebeard, mostly because he doesn't want to believe it's Snorri Whitebeard.
Yeah.
Because that would be terrifying to Malekith.
Yeah.
Because something people might not be aware of is that Snorri Whitebeard was Malekith's best friend. Malekith had a wife that he loved dearly, but I'm pretty sure he loved Snorri more than his wife.
And Snorri is Grombrindle, correct?
Yes, and they were just the biggest of bros. And Snorri Whitebeard, he was the first High King after the Ancestor Gods left. And these two literally fought side by side for decades, if not centuries, clearing out the demons of chaos, the beastmen, and the mortals of chaos from the old world, to expand their empires, which humanity would eventually take over and become the Empire and Bretonnian stuff. But there was a long, long time where these two, they were back to back against some of the most heinous forces Chaos had to throw at them, and Chaos couldn't beat them. They were an undefeatable duo, and they were very deep, good friends. Malekith was the last person Snorri talked. Snorri died talking to Malekith. Snorri refused to die until he could see Malekith one last time, because he wanted Malekith to promise him or swear to him that Malekith would do everything in his power to uphold the amazing empires they had built.
Between the dwarves and the elves, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Which we all know how that went. Malekith not only screwed both of them, but he used his knowledge of the dwarves expressly to trick the dwarves into attacking the high elves and caused the War of Vengeance. Malekith is the only reason that happened. He purposefully incited it, manipulating both of them using all of his intimate knowledge of the elves and the dwarves. So it was the ultimate dick move.
Oh man, there's some bad blood there for sure.
Yeah, and it was so bad that it brought Snorri back from the dead, because he refused. It was such an egregious sin, and was such a important and deep, meaningful oath was broken so nastily that Snorri was like, "No, I'm not going to the halls of the ancestors. I'm coming back to deal with this crap." So this would be a big emotional matchup between the two, and it is one of my greatest sadness that we never got to truly see it go down. In the end times they talk, but that's literally it. Yeah. For a brief second. But in any event, this matchup, funny enough, is actually not that hard. Grombrindle wins. by a lot.
Oh yeah.
And the main reason is that Grombrindel's items are insane. Like, he's like Gotrek Gurnison, but just better in every way. He has the same weapon Gotrek has. He has a rune axe of Grimnir, which Grombrindel. So there are only 2 axes of Grimnir. Gotrek has one, and High King Thorgrim Grudgebearer has the other one. But when Grombrindel came back from the dead and returned from the realm of the ancestors to the mortal plane, he brought another one with him. Whether it's actually a third one that Grimnir had, or whether it's like a spiritual recreation of it, just made from Snorri's power. Because the thing that's important to remember about Grombrindel is he is literally a god. He's an ancestor god.
Yeah.
He's not a full powered one, you could argue, but there is no doubt that he's an ancestor god. And that's just his weapon, which would be enough to honestly make it a close fight. But on top of that, he has the Rune Cloak of Valea, which basically makes him impervious to magic.
Yeah.
Like, there is virtually no spell that Malekith could throw at him that would have a hope of getting past the Cloak of Valea. And even if it did, it would then have to get past the armor of Glimmeril Scales, which was forged by Grogny himself.
Oh god.
God of, like, the primary god of the dwarves. You know, the guy who made the Throne of Power. We're talking about a ridiculous badass.
Yeah.
And that armor is so amazing that only a single scale has ever been removed from it by an opponent.
Who was that? Out of curiosity.
It was this random Lord of Chaos. I can't remember if it was a Demon Prince or this guy, but there was this crazy power that fought Grombrindel, and when he died, he bit Grombrindel's armor and managed to pull off one of the scales.
Just one scale. Oh, okay.
Just one scale.
Yeah.
And that was all he was able to do. And the dwarves found it, and it's such an amazing, mind-blowing material to them that they have basically held onto it as a relic because they don't understand how something like that can physically exist.
Yeah.
Because it makes Gromril look like a joke.
Got it.
Glimmeril is like it's like mind-blowing. And those 3 items, there is nothing Malekith could do to Snorri Whitebeard.
Yeah.
Like Grombrindel, and that's not even including the fact that Grombrindel has like, you know how in Batman the anime, or Batman, whenever you try and make a comment to him, he just sort of vanishes.
Yeah.
Grombrindle's that guy. Like,
oh
he'll just vanish randomly when you blink or something like that, or he'll appear suddenly as if out of nowhere. And whether that's because he's just very good at misdirection or because he's literally using god powers, I can't say for sure. It's insinuated that it's basically god powers.
Yeah.
And so Malekith wouldn't see him coming. So Snorri or Grombrindel could easily sneak up on him, and Seraphon would get butchered by the axe of Grimnir.
That's awesome.
And
heavy metal.
It would basically boil down to Malekith would throw every single horrible spell, curse, and incantation he knows of. They would all proceed to absolutely bounce off of Grombrindel because he's a dwarf, he has the Rune Cloak of Valea, and he has the armor of Glimmeril Scales. So none of the magic would even touch him.
Yeah.
And Grombrindel would probably just march towards him, like reciting the oath that he made Malekith promise, and then he would probably just behead. It would probably be very similar to how Calor the Arrogant died against High King Gotrek Starbreaker at the end of the War of Vengeance.
So awesome.
And many thousands of years of grudges would be struck out in a moment.
God, that's so awesome, man. Well, that is a very fitting conclusion to our video. So here, in the 5th and final showdown of the day, we have Grombrindel, the White Dwarf, also known as Snorri, aka Snorri Whitebeard, taking the victory over Malekith the Witch King, which I'm sure a lot of you guys are quite happy about.
Excellent. Brutality.
So remember, guys, this is going to be an ongoing series. This is the 3rd edition. If you guys have missed the 2nd one, that was on Loremaster of Sotek's channel. And please make sure to head over to his channel as well, because the 4th rendition of the series is going to be over on your channel. And also, if you guys have any suggestions, drop them in the comments for sure. Be quite a bit of fun. And Sotek, you got any closing words or anything you'd like to say to the people about the matchups, future matchups, or any fun ideas you have for this Versus series?
Not anything super specific this week. I will say that for the 5th episode of this series, which will be here on Turin's channel, there will probably be something special about
The Christmas edition. Yeah, maybe it'll be around Christmas or New Year's for sure. Yeah.
Not at the rate we've been going.
Yeah, actually, it's been a little bit slow for sure.
Maybe Valentine's Day.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I guess on the 5th one, which is going to be on the channel, I think I know what Sotek's talking about. Is this something you want to give them a teaser for, or is it something we're going to keep in the shadows until it's time?
We'll tease it next week.
Okay, we'll tease it. So make sure to go to Sotek's channel for the 4th episode, where you will be finding out about this special challenge or showdown we're going to be having in the 5th episode. And I think that's pretty much it for today. So guys, thank you so much for joining. And Sotek, any closing words for the audience?
Have a good one. Have a good night.
All right, take care, guys, and we'll see you next time.